Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of Beyond the Present podcast. I'm Daniel Morgan. I'm here joined by Poujix live from Canada. Hey there, my man. How's it going?
That's great, man. How are you?
I am doing terrific. And of course, our special guest, Ali, is actually back for another episode. Hey there, my man. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's great to have you with us right now. So, guys, let's start off our episode today talking about what we earlier mentioned, of course, perhaps hinted at in the previous episodes, but now we're going to focus right at it, and that is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So, first, you, Poujix, do you actually agree with this statement?
100%.
Why is that? Would you please give me your sentiment on this?
Look, think about it in terms of survival. Whenever, like in the very long time ago, say 100,000 years ago or so, people would really struggle and go through thick and thin, mostly thick, I guess. But then, when they survived, their odds of survival for the remainder of their days would be much, much higher as a result of, first of all, their experience, but secondly, literally getting thick skin.
That's right.
And obviously thicker psychology.
Wow. Interesting. And Ali, what is your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I do agree with what just Puya said. In terms of like, even if you think about from the science perspective, you know, in terms of the evolution, you know, like it's, you know, like over time you improve is because, you know, like you keep making the mistakes and then you keep improving on that. So that's how I see it.
Awesome. I love this attitude. You keep making mistakes and improving on that, because ultimately, I don't know why, guys, we have been taught at a very young age to fear mistakes, to fear failure, and to fear obstacles.
For sure.
And that's a serious problem that we have right now. And because of this, I want to actually delve a little bit deeper about the importance of dealing with obstacles, problems, or even sometimes unfortunate events in our lives. So, Poujix, what is your general attitude when you find yourself in deep shit?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I like everybody else, pretty much, I've been taught to not, you know, be terrified of mistakes in one way or the other. But then over time, I grew to appreciate them in a sense. I mean, obviously, I don't want to make those mistakes, but then it will happen. It's not inevitable. It's inevitable, basically, and you can't avoid it. So might as well get the best out of the mistake you made and improve yourself for sure.
When Interesting. Ali, what is your perspective when you find yourself in a, let's say, dilemma?
So, yeah, I mean, for me, when like whenever I make a mistake, so there's a famous saying, I believe it goes something like this, where an expert is someone who has tried a million different ways.
Wow.
So, you know, like someone becomes the expert because he has failed like 1,000 times.
Wow.
So most of the time that's how I see it. So if I make a mistake, I actually feel happy because I'm like, okay, you know, like now I found that, you know, like this way it doesn't work. Wow. So I have to try something else.
This is
also,
such
if I could
a great
jump
attitude.
in. A friend of mine once said that when you make a mistake, you know you've tried.
Wow.
Yeah,
you guys are giving out all these, you know, friggin' awesome quotes. Let me just hand over something right here, man. I'm falling behind here. And
hey, don't steal my quotes, man.
That's right. This guy's taking them all. And I just remember this amazing one, which says, the master has failed more times than the amateur has even tried. I mean, that's another great one that I like a lot. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So overall, we all understand. I mean, right now we're sitting here and we're talking about this issue. We say, guys, we got to fail. It's okay to lose. But let's now talk about some of the things that we just cannot even foresee. And more importantly, the things that we have nothing to do with. I mean, sometimes we find ourselves in deep shit. Like we find ourselves in crises that we have not basically thought about or created or something. So first, you, Poujix, when you find yourself in a problem that is not of your own making, let's say you find yourself in a bad economic condition or there's some disease or something, whatever, how do you deal with those unfortunate events where you really, let's be honest, where it's really not your fault?
Right. I mean, there is this very good point I heard a lot of people make, but then most recently I read it in the book, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck, was to, whether it's your fault or not, take responsibility. It doesn't matter if it's your fault or not.
Wow.
Taking responsibility is different than being at fault. So what that means is that obviously we also, for example, specifically to political climate, we all know shit goes down. We all know politicians will be awful. They generally are. And we know, even if we love some politicians, we know there are going to be some politicians that are awful, at least. So we always know things like that happens. So the best way is to basically, as much as possible, prepare for those in the first place. But whenever, worst comes to worst, these things happen, and you find yourself still in a deep shit, basically. That's right. You have to basically face you don't want to face the fan, but even if the shit is facing the fan, it's coming back at you. You just don't want to do it.
I'm glad that in your case the shit faces the fan, because usually shit fucking hits the fan, man. That's different. For you, it's a lot more polite. It just looks at you. That's pretty good. I like it. That's pretty cool. Let's move on to Ollie here. So, Ollie, my man, what do you think?
It's a hard. The problem is, so as a human being, it's like whenever you are in a shit, right? It's sometimes you just need to like step back, and then you have to look at the entire picture, right? I think that's one of the things.
I mean, I don't want to look at the entire picture of the shit. But
yeah, man, pretty ugly and smelly. That's right.
I see your point. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you'll see more stuff now if you look back. You actually see where it's coming from. So
that's true story.
But for real, it's I think sometimes what happens is that when we are in a trouble or sometimes we're thinking in a really narrow slice, and what happens is that if you step back and if you look at the entire problem, and then there's always something positive that you can they can make from it. There's another famous saying that I'm going to use.
Say it before Poujix steals it. Say it before he steals it.
Exactly. It's like, for example, when one door closes, there's going to be always another door. So,
wow.
And that's how I see it.
So true, man. Great. And let's go back to Poujix here. You said something about, this amazing book, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And actually I have the book here right now in my library by Mark Manson, right?
I believe so.
Pretty amazing book. I finished, actually. It was great. And I want to talk a little bit about this whole concept of taking responsibility. So you said, and of course it is mentioned in the book as well, that it doesn't matter if the problem you're facing with, the crisis you're in the middle of, is not of your own creation and is not your fault. But ultimately, how do people take responsibility when they find themselves in very dire situations and circumstances?
Right. I mean, before I get to the example of dire situations, I want to grab a example by one of my personal role models, Grant Cardone.
That's right.
He was talking about taking responsibility. He was like, I'll give you an example. It could be as simple as this. When you see, for example, a piece of paper or some sort of garbage on the ground, most people tend to not care, just ignore it and move on. He was saying, I take responsibility. I pick it up. I put it in the trash or in its right place. So it can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be something very, very drastic. But then at the end of the day, if you see some situation, it could happen to you. It could not be your fault. But then again, be like, okay, it's fine. This happened. Instead of start whining about it. Oh, it wasn't my fault. I mean, it's all right. It wasn't your fault. I don't want to, be harsh on you. But then it doesn't solve anything. You want to take action. You want to be like, okay, this is a problem. How can I solve problem? That's our job. Go through solving problems and enjoy our lives.
So true, man.
While doing
so true. Tony Robbins called us being solution oriented instead of problem oriented. And that's exactly what you see when we find ourselves in crises. Our first question is, why me? Like, why did it happen to me? Or why now? Or why, dude, the why doesn't friggin' matter. You are in the middle of deep shit, and if you don't do anything, this swamp will take you. So instead of saying why or how I got into this mess, you'll have time later. For now, take action, solve the damn problem. So true. Let's move on to Ali. What is your perspective on being responsible in the face of obstacles and difficulties?
I can just I can just think on, with my situation, what happens, like, for example, if I get into trouble, right? Yeah, to be honest, that's one of the first instincts, like, just like you said, why me, right?
That's
but
right.
I think for me, I sort of pray more about, okay, like, giving me the strength rather than, like, just having the problem being solved on its own. I think I would rather have the patience of just having the stress than having the problem gone away on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I talked to Puya about this before, where I said one of the big things. So one of the big things about Elon is that I think he takes stress really, really well. And I think that's why he does so, so good. So, like, for example, if you think about his, his companies, his companies failed so bad in the first, couple of years.
And even nowadays, I heard there's some problems.
All his money. Yeah, even right now. Yes,
that's right.
Exactly. I think with Tesla, I think they're having issues every
exactly.
day now.
I heard recently on the news.
So I think being able to bear stress and trying to think through it, I think that's one of the biggest attributes that you can have.
Wow.
And for Elon, I think he's been through a lot, and I have no idea how he got through them, but I think that's how you if we go back to the main topic, it's like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's the exact same thing. You get so much stress, it doesn't kill you.
That's right.
But at the same time, it'll actually make you stronger, and it will make you bear more stress.
So true.
And I think that's one of the biggest attributes
Absolutely.
that we can all have.
I love it. And a great example, Elon Musk here. And overall, my concern now is this: how to handle stress under pressure. Because as Ollie mentioned, it's very important to have that quality, because it ultimately allows you to overcome a lot of challenges. So, Poujix, when you hear a bad story or something, when you hear, let's say, bad news or some sort of something that truly makes you depressed or even shocked, how can you manage your stress under that circumstance? Like, what's your strategy?
Right. Interestingly enough, for whatever reason, I have no idea. I never given it much of a thought. But then the best of me comes out when I'm under tremendous pressure.
Wow.
I mean, obviously, it's not really fun, but then I am performing at a level that it surprises me to a degree unimaginable. I'm like, this is not me. Who is this guy?
Wow.
So thankfully, that's good. But then one thing that I noticed recently about that thing about myself is that the first step sort of is to it's in the same boat with Elon's situation that Ali mentioned, is to basically be able to absorb that pressure. That's the first step. Like, not basically panicking, being able to, okay, let's think about it. If a chunk of water spoils, think of it as that disaster.
That's
the
right.
first step is to basically put a lot of paper towel that can properly absorb that water.
Wow.
So don't be afraid to absorb that pressure. Don't shut yourself down, because if you shut yourself down to those pressures, to those emotions, then you shut yourself down to possible solutions as well. So you go into the state of denial, etc., etc., etc. So the first step I think is very important, is to be able to absorb that pressure.
Interesting. Ollie, what do you think about this?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like the way. Okay, so I'm going to use more quotes today because
this guy's got a lot of quotes, man. Hey, Poujix, you stand back, please. Let him finish all his lines, man. Don't take his lines, man.
Yeah. Today's the quotes day.
That's right.
I should do like a Sunday quote day. I don't know, something like that.
That's right.
So I mean, for me, it's like I take a different turn for myself if I feel really, really stressed. I think one of the ways I get relaxed is like Steve Jobs once said that like if you were to die the next day, would you do things a little bit differently?
Wow.
And then the way I look at it is like, okay, like for example, I'm like super stressed, and then I look at it, for example, if I were to die tomorrow, how would I solve this stress, or like how would I feel about it?
So true.
And then most of the times it's just like, oh, this is not a big deal, like this is not a big stress at all. I think most of the times I do come to that realization.
That's right.
That this is not a big problem as I was making it to be.
Exactly.
And I think one of the ways I do that is like always thinking about the big picture, right?
Absolutely.
And being able to just be like, same time, I don't want to be too dark, but for example, if you were to die tomorrow, right, would this stress really be
matter that much?
So
true.
Yeah, so that's how I look at it, and yeah, in the past it has helped me a lot, you just need to say, you just need to stay calm. And I think to stay calm, you just need to look at different ways to stay calm.
Absolutely true. And you mentioned that in the past, there's a famous Latin phrase that says memento mori, which means remember that you're mortal and remember that you will die. So this is very important. Like, I think we lose perspective about this matter, and we tend to exaggerate a lot of the problems that are really not that important in the long run. I mean, let's be honest. It's just a temporary step in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly, I recommend people to think of this life that they have right now as what we call the hero's journey. I mean, guys, take a look at all the folklore novels and, for example, famous works of fiction, and you see that all of these heroes are going through a lot, and the finale becomes grand because of all the things they went through. So by literally trying to think of your life as that hero's journey, and that thinking of all these obstacles and setbacks as part of those challenges that ultimately give meaning to this life, and makes the story a lot more attractive, and the finale a lot more enjoyable. Like, you literally see yourself as this hero going through all these things, most of which might not be that preferable at first, and eventually you overcome all the obstacles. So by having that long-term perspective, and by seeing yourself as that hero who goes through all of this to get to a great point for something better, that can really help you to overcome all the challenges. You say, this is just right now. There's been a lot of things in my life so far, and I am sure that I will keep going, and I'll do this. This is going to be a very, very great source of inspiration by literally thinking of yourself as a hero, and all these obstacles as part of your wonderful story. So let's move on now to Poujix here. Speaking of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. When was the last time you almost got killed and then you got stronger?
Well, it depends on what you consider to have killed you. I mean, I'm trying to think of a very aggressive scenario, but then
don't tell about our audience about that case with the STD and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that didn't kill me. I'm still alive.
All right.
Also, that was from yesterday.
Oh, exactly.
We still have time to die.
All right.
It's too recent.
That's right.
No, but then, I mean, speaking of STD, no, but then, like in my late teenage years, I had a few really bad relationship problems that really devastated me. But then I got very good lessons out of those. That I learned a lot about what the dynamics of relationships are, and how to behave. Like, not necessarily long-term relationships.
That's
I'm
right.
just saying any kind of relationship, specifically with like romantic relationships, basically. So I think those were like a couple. There were three, basically, two major ones and one very minor one, back to back, sort of, in 1 year. That really devastated me at that point.
Think about it. Pretty tough year, I guess. Let's move on to Ellie here. How about yourself? The last time you felt that you're going to die, you didn't die, and it became stronger as a result of it.
Oh yeah. So I mean, yeah, for me, it wasn't like dying, but it was like a lot of stress. That was so much stress that I was actually pretty depressed at that time. So this was back in school in my first year. I fucked up all of my courses, like almost all of my courses. And this was first semester. And I was very, very close of getting kicked out of school because my grades were so bad. And that put me under depression. I was like, oh my God, my life is over. And that was a really, really dark time. But at the same time, when I look back, I'm like, okay, in high school, I was an okay student. I wasn't a great student.
That's right. So
if that thing never happened to me in my first semester, I think I would still be an okay, student.
That's right.
So I think for me, it was more like, okay, that happened to me, and like for example, like at that time, it felt really, really bad and really stressed out. But now I'm actually happy that happened because now I'm much stronger than what I was in high school.
Wow.
And I think that was because of that. And there's another famous quote that was well, actually, this is my quote.
Hey, dude, we're being swarmed by the quotes, man. Like literally, I got quotes over my face right now. I got to get a hand, some cooking here, like trying to help me.
So this one's a personal quote. So
that's right.
So you can't do a copyright on that. Sorry about that.
Awesome. So Poujix, he's talking to you, man. He's talking to you right now.
So I think you have to pay me every time someone listens to this, right? So.
All right.
But yeah.
Can we pay you back in more quotes? Like you can we pay back in quotes?
No, you can pay me in Bitcoin.
All right.
So my quote is something like this. Sometimes you have to take the bitter, like the medicine, to feel better.
Wow.
I
like it.
And the bitter, and most of the times, it is going to be bitter, but if you want to feel better, or if you want to be better at your, at your job maybe, or like personal growth, sometimes you just have to take the hit.
Wow, love it, man. I had no idea you had so much talent as a rapper. By the way, I like it. You could make a great rapper. You can make a great rapper. I'm telling you right now. You first got to get bitter in order to get better. You first got to get bitter in order to get better.
Better.
All that stuff. I like it. Pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. So overall,
awesome,
we joked about this, but this is so true, man. Like, look at the depth of this sentence, man. It's great. I love it. And it's so true. You got to go through the bitter to have the better in the end. And it's so true. So ultimately, we are gradually approaching the end of the show. Let's try to wrap up our conversation and then eventually reach a conclusion. So I'm going to go first to Poujix here. So Poujix, from your perspective, regarding the subject, what do you think about this thing? What is your recommendation to our audience in terms of what they should do in order to deal with their problems and difficulties in life, sometimes even with crises and the things that they could never even imagine overcoming?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, nobody puts... the instinct is to not like or want the pain, but be aware that, again, another famous saying that whatever worth having doesn't come easy.
Wow.
So
nothing good comes easy, man. So true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing worth.
Please don't ruin the goddamn quote. I love that quote. Don't fucking ruin that quote, man. Don't ruin that quote, man. All right.
So nothing worth having comes easy.
That's right.
That's very true. At the end of the day, if you want something that you want to appreciate, then you have to pay the price. Pay the price being sometimes you have to go through pain or whatever, and then embrace the pain. Sometimes it's perfectly fine. Like I'm not saying that go cut yourself or anything, but then when it happens, at that point, be like, okay, it's making me better. It's making me a bigger person, a better person. So
awesome.
Happen.
I hope it doesn't make you a bitter person, by the way. It's pretty important. Now, let's move on to let's move on to Al here. What is your perspective, my man? What's your final thought for our audience?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, no one is actually looking for trouble or like no one is looking for stress, right? Like it just comes to you, and it's like as you take on new tasks, the stress will come with it automatically. And I think so. Yeah, so I think people just need to take a step back, whenever they feel like, like they're really in a stressful situation, they just need to step back, take a deep breath. And I'm just going to end it with one more quote.
Guys, seriously, I think today I had, is there such a medical term for like having too much quotes in one day? Because I think I'm currently suffering from that condition right now.
Quotaria.
Awesome. I like the term. Yeah, that's right.
Should just have the name of the podcast. Quotaria.
Pretty cool.
So the quote goes something like this. It's like, yesterday is the past, tomorrow's the future, but again, today's a gift. So, I think at the same time, you just need to take a deep breath and enjoy the present. Wow.
So true, man. The present is the gift and life itself is a gift. And of course, for those of our audience who are currently in a difficult situation in life, understand that things will pass. And you will. I mean, life is very much cyclical, and you will inevitably go through crises. They say in life, you are either right now in the middle of a crisis, you either have just passed a crisis, or, sorry to say that, You're about to enter a crisis. That's just, that's what life is all about. And we need to understand that going through the tough times is part of life. It's not a bad thing. It can make things better for you. It can actually make you a stronger person. And that's so true. If it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. And trust me, in most cases, it will not kill you. I mean, you think it will, but in most cases, it actually will not. You will overcome it. So, guys, it was a great thing. Thanks for both of you guys to be here with us. I really enjoyed it. Great discussion. Although I currently have to go right now, I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I have apparently too much quotes in my blood right now, so I might have to get some detox or something. But overall, it's pretty good, and I love this thing. So, my man, thank you, Poujix, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
and, of course, thank you so much, Ali, for your great quotes and thoughts. I really loved it.
Thanks. Thanks again, Dan.
For sure, definitely. We'll definitely have you in the future as well. And this is all the time we have for. Hopefully, if you have any comments or thoughts, please leave that on our website, podbean.com. And of course, if you have any ideas or thoughts or any sort of suggestions to improve the show, please do understand that we look forward to your feedback. You can actually rate us also on iTunes. And this is Daniel Mulligan, and this was Beyond the Present Podcast. Thank you.